I'm joined by EZ Csolkovits today. So EA, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on your great podcast. And one of the best things anyone could ever want to talk about is wealth. And Tony Talks Wealth is a great name for a show. So thank you for having me on. I'm blessed to be here.
It's my pleasure. EA is the founder of the Givers University, which teaches people how to increase their happiness, freedom, and greatness through personal, business, social, and family development. So EA, please share with us your fascinating story, because you have such a long list of amazing professional and personal achievements. As I mentioned to you off air, I think you should be in the Olympics for the achievements you've had, and why people should become members of the Givers University.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony. I look forward to sharing that with you. And to reference the Olympics, I can certainly share with you at least 3 times in my life. I was that one clip from the Olympics of them doing the downhill skiing, and he falls over and hits all the pylons as he's going down. The agony of defeat, right? So I've had 3 of those, so I know exactly what that feels like. And but thank you for the reference. I've been very blessed, even at an early age. And really, it had a lot to do with my ignorance and my ability to understand that I don't know anything. And I think one of the challenges that we have, and I know many of your listeners are business owners, is here's the challenge we all face. As our level of expertise goes up, so does our inability to think like a customer in direct proportion. Yeah. In other words, we simply get too smart. We can no longer think like a customer, like the little old lady that walks in a car dealership and she says, does this car have air conditioning? And the salesman goes through this whole thing about the coils and everything. And after he's all done talking for 10 minutes about the air conditioning, she goes, oh, I was just wondering if it would keep me cool in the summer. And as business owners, yeah, we are constantly challenged with that because we get too smart. And my blessings in life really was that it was at an early age, so I didn't have time to even realize, I was too smart yet. I just knew I didn't know what it was. So to share the stories with you, which are a couple of them that I hopefully will have meaning as I point out those aspects for your listeners, if I may. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. I live in Michigan now, but first 30 years of my life was in Chicago, and I lived in an area known as Oak Brook, the Oak Brook greater area, and my father was a milkman. I mean, and I'm 65 years old today. So, so back then, milk still came in glass gallons. There was a box outside everyone's house that, that was a milkman box. Yeah. And Tony, the amazing thing was that there was always money in the box for the milkman and no one touched it. Not one single time was milkman money ever missing. Not one time. Certainly interesting, different times, right? But, and at 5 years old, I'd go help my father and, on his milk route. And he was one-man operation, had a route for a dairy called Twin Oaks Dairy they had in the Chicagoland area. And so I remember getting up at like 3 in the morning. And I think, Tony, that was my first real touch with getting on with whatever you need to do and not having someone over your shoulder telling you to do it. Because I would watch my father not punch a time clock. He got up at 3 in the morning to do his own route, right? Yeah. And then went to the dairy and loaded up the truck and cut all the ice by hand and put that in the truck. Because, very few refrigerated trucks. That was only the semis back then. The delivery guys had to cut their own ice and put it in the truck, right? And and I remember doing that. And I remember him always saying, well, the sooner we get done, the sooner we're done. And he said it over and over again. And I think that's had sort of an interesting impact on me, because I remember just thinking, the sooner you get it done, the sooner you get it done, and not have to wait for someone to say, go, let's get on with it. Or, so I think that was maybe one of the first touches I had, with the self-starter, being a self-starter and doing what we need to do as business people every day, even on the days we may not feel like doing it, but still getting on with it. So that was, pretty humble beginning, son of a milkman. And then at 16 years old, Tony, I took my first big step into becoming a success, and I got a job as a janitor. Okay. And I have to share with you, I didn't mind being a janitor because business was always picking up. And it was, yeah. So, so, I had a time clock I punched, but there was 2 really profound events that happened to me while I was a janitor The first one was, I was able to be bonded at 16 years old, which, being in the financial industry, basically I could be insured.
Yeah.
So, if my buffer went crazy and hit a piece of equipment, insurance company would pay for it. That also allowed me to be in really expensive homes as well, and locations. And one of the homes I was in every single Wednesday, I cleaned her home. And the name of the lady was June Martino. Now, the name may mean nothing until I reference the movie for your listeners who may have seen it.
Okay.
There was a movie out in the last few years that was called The Founder. It was about McDonald's, and and Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc.
Yeah.
And I can share with you, that was most of that was Hollywood spin. I lived the McDonald's phenomenon. I lived in Oak Brook, where the world headquarters was for decades and decades. So I saw it. I lived it in my lifetime. And being 65 years old, now, that all happened during my lifetime, So June Martino, if you're watching the movie, did you see the movie by any chance?
I haven't, but I'm going to now. So.
It's a good view. It's a good view. And remember, it's Hollywood spin. Ray really wasn't that way. Yeah. They just throw Hollywood drama in it to, get the listener, watchers, I should get viewers. In the movie, you will see Michael Keaton, Ray Kroc, who plays Ray Kroc, constantly talking to a lady outside his office named June. He says, June, this, all the time. She's in the whole movie. That lady is the lady whose house I cleaned every Wednesday.
Okay.
So you'll see her. So when you see the movie, think of that. He says, talks to June, and think that's the lady. Of course, obviously, she's an actress, but the real lady, right?
Yeah.
And this is what was interesting to me. I was in there every Wednesday, and I don't know why, Tony, but somehow I had in my mind a misconception that I always thought, up to meeting her, that to be rich, you had to be a jerk. You had to be me-only oriented, self-only oriented. You had to be the first one to say, it's just business, and you had to be willing to push people down at a moment's notice and don't care about it. I don't know why I had that thought, but I was in my head. And here I am in this house, $1 million home back then. I'm 16 years old. And this woman, June Martino, has the third most controlling stock in McDonald's. She's got a full-time maid and butler. I'm there to buff the floors with special buffing pads and do the swimming pool and the garage. And she was so the opposite of what I had thought. She was so approachable, very nice, never condescending to her maid and butler. In fact, just the opposite. And just to let you know, like, if I was buffing the floor and I was looking down and she walked through the house, and through the room I was in, and she saw me before I saw her because I was looking down, she would say hi first. I mean, just very approachable and very kind and gentle, a really nice person. And I thought, man, it just astonished me. I thought, this is so the opposite of what I had wrongly thought of what, obviously you can be rich and happy. She's got both, and I'm looking at the well, she bought homes for her sons. Oh boy, I gotta tell you, Tony, I loved cleaning the garage, because in order to clean the garage, I had to pull out the Rolls Royce, and I had to sit in a Rolls Royce that was 10 lifetimes of my income worth, and here I am. I would go home at the end of the day and I would drive my Rolls Canardly, which means rolls down one hill, can hardly make it up the next. So here I am. So I'm driving at home, my Rolls Canardly, and I'm sitting in this Rolls Royce that's like 10 lifetimes of my income. Wow. So I tried to clean the garage 3 times in one day whenever I was there, just to sit in the car.
Did you do any other rooms?
I tried not to, I mean, and the swimming pool I'd clean like twice. She wanted the truck out in front of her house 8 hours every Wednesday. And I had to look for things to do because she had full-time staff. Yeah. And but I didn't mind it. I mean, it was just extraordinary just to witness this whole thing, that people really lived out like that way. And they could be happy people and they could be great people, right? So one day, she was in an extra good mood. I thought, man, this is my chance. So I mustered up all the courage a snot-nosed 16-year-old could muster up. And I'm going to go ask June Martino, the icon of the area. Everyone knows her. I'm going to go ask her a question. So I went up to her. Man, I got to tell you, I was like shaking in my janitorial boots. And I went up to her and I said, hi, June. And she turned and looked at me, smiled. She knew who I was. She saw me every Wednesday. And she said, hi. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, well, sure. And I said, well, what's that? And I said, could you tell me about it? And she said, what? I said, well, the whole McDonald's thing. I'm not kidding, Tony. She put her arm around me, brought me in the kitchen. And I had asked her in the morning, the entire day, told me the entire story of when you will see in the movie, which is accurate. She worked for Ray when he was a milkshake mixer salesman. And she was working for him there long before he met the McDonald's brothers. So she told me about that all the way through the whole McDonald's history, all the way up until the moment we're sitting in the kitchen together, her telling me the story. And man, you know, who else is she talking to? What she's talking to the 16-year-old snot-nosed kid telling this intimate details of what happened in the story. And there's a part in the movie, when you see this, think of me, because she referenced it decades before. It didn't happen the way in the movie again, Hollywood spin. Yeah. The event did happen. And that was, there's a time where June, who kept the books, went to Ray Kroc, Michael Keaton, and said, we don't have any money. We're out of money. In fact, we're losing money faster. It's coming in. There's no money left. She told me about that event and that she agreed to continue to work for Ray for no pay. It didn't matter. He didn't have any money to pay her anyway. Yeah. And he would give her in exchange company stock in a worthless company, worth less than zero, underwater company. And he would agree to take some of the phone calls from the bill collector so they wouldn't hound her on the phone. So I asked her, I said, June, I'm a janitor. I work paycheck to paycheck, Friday to Friday. If I don't get paid on Friday, I'm not showing on Saturday. Why did you do it? Tony, she sat back, stared at me and did this eye lock on me. And I realized I had just asked her a question no one had ever asked her. Everyone wanted to know what happened with McDonald's, but no one wanted to know why. Why, yeah. Yeah. So she sat back, she's staring at me, and it was about 10 seconds and it seemed like a half hour. And I lost the eye lock. I'm looking around, and she's still staring at me. And I could tell she truthfully is going back to think, why did she do it? And when she spoke, Tony, it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I remember so succinctly what she said, the way she said it, which is what really got me. And then my instant thought right after, when I asked her, why did you work for nothing? Why'd you do it? No pay. She replied and said, because I believed in Ray. And I remember my first thought, Tony, was, that's it. That's my answer. I need to find me a Ray Kroc, because it certainly didn't hurt her. Look at her. She's doing great. I need to find someone who knows all this stuff, because Ray obviously did. Look how it helped her. And I know I don't even know what I don't know, let alone know something, right? I mean, I just know I don't know what I need to know. And I need to find someone like a Ray Kroc in my life that I can persuade to bring me under their wing and they could teach me. And so I just threw it out there. And I mean, at this point, it was impetuous ignorance on my part. I didn't know. Inadvertently, I was doing the right thing and asking the right question. I just threw it out there and I said, man, where's my Ray Kroc? Where would I meet my Ray Kroc? And I remember thinking that was the first thought I had right after she told me that. I'm still sitting there. I thought, that's the answer, because here I am at 16. I want to become rich and happy. Not realizing, Tony, even then I had it backwards. We're supposed to be happy first and then rich, right? Yeah. But at 16 years old, I'm all about the money. So, I want to get the money, right? And I'm watching her, there's all these things and everything she has. So it wasn't about 3 or 4 months later at the same janitorial service, we got a phone call at night. I've already punched out. It's after dinner time. And I'm just sort of hanging out with the boss. He was a friend of the family. And we were talking, the phone rings. And he talks for a few minutes on the phone, hangs up the phone. He says, well, that's a guy in from Detroit, and he's opening a diamond store, and he wants to see some carpeting, and he needs to see it tonight because he's leaving tomorrow morning on a plane going back to Detroit, and they're doing a rebuild in this place for this diamond store. And I said, okay, what's that got to do with me? He said, well, I need you to go. And I said, Jerry, that's the owner's name. I said, yeah. I'm not going. The first time I said, no, we're going to count my nose here. It's really interesting. I said, no, I'm not going. I'm tired. I've been cleaning all day. He said, no, I need you to go show this carpeting. I said, Jerry, I clean carpet. I know how to shampoo it. I know how to vacuum it. I don't know how to bid out a carpet job. I've never bid one out before. I don't even know what to do. And he gave me one of these wheels you walk with. And he said, well, you walk this way and you walk this way and call me on the phone. And I said, Jerry, no, I don't know anything carpet. Third time I've said no now. He said, I'll tell you what. If you go, I'll give you your pick of any Saturday off you want. Now, For a janitor, Tony,
Yeah,
that's a huge
yeah,
negotiation chip, right?
yeah.
We work when businesses are closed. So Saturday morning till night, we're cleaning solid through. So I wanted to make sure my ears didn't get tricked. So I repeated it back. I said, any Saturday I want off? And he sighed and he said, yeah, any Saturday you want off. I said, okay, Jerry. So I got some carpet samples and I threw them in the back of my Rolls Canardly. And now I'm getting ready to head over. Now I'm setting the stage. I'm setting the stage for your listeners because I want them to understand what's about ready to happen. I'm tired. I'm physically exhausted. I've been cleaning all day. I'm emotionally spent. I'm just tired. I'm fatigued. I'm going to do something I don't even know how to do. I don't know how to measure carpet or anything else. I'm going to meet a guy from Detroit. Seriously, someone from Detroit. I'm going to meet them, right? I mean, and my boss, I'm not doing this as a favor for him. I mean, who cares about that? I'm doing this for only one reason. And I've already said no 3 times. I'm doing it for the Saturday off. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no other reason, right? Little do I know, I'm getting ready to meet the man that will change the trajectory of my life forever. I'm getting ready, unbeknownst to me, to meet my Ray Kroc, the man that will become the father I had, even though I had a father, and I'll become the son he never had, even though he had a son. It will be my mentor in a time I didn't even know how to spell mentor, let alone know what it was. And I walk in to meet this guy. And Tony, have you ever had the experience where you met someone and your comfort level's so high, you feel like you already knew him before? Have you ever had that happen?
It's a rare feeling, but yes, I've had it once or twice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it was that kind of thing. And I'm talking to him about everything. And we talked like for 2 hours. And this is at night, by the way. The phone call came to the office after dinner time. So, it's mid-evening now. For 2 hours, him and I talk about everything. The carpeting is a no sale because he wanted real plush stuff for inside a diamond store. And, we just had office grade, commercial office grade stuff, right? So I'm putting my samples back in my Rolls Canardly. And as I'm leaving, he offers me a job. I say no again. I said, no. I'm, I don't know anything about diamonds. He said, well, I'll teach you. And I said, listen, no, I'm not gonna. I said, the only thing I know about diamonds is number 1, they're expensive. And number 2, some woman's going to ask me for one someday. That's all I know about diamonds. And he said, I'll teach you. And I said, no. Right. And then he, as I was walking out the door, I didn't know. I really was at that moment speaking with a genius in the truest puritanical, not the IQ baloney kind of genius, but I mean, a real human engineering genius that could talk with someone for 10 minutes and he could tell you their thought process, their life, I mean, that kind of person with that incredible awareness to, by just looking in your eyes and talking with you, he got it, right? I didn't know that was happening. I'm just, I'm a janitor kid, right? And so as I'm leaving, he hit me with something he knew was going to get my goat and grind me. He knew it would. So as I'm walking out the door, he said, what do you have to lose? You could always go back being a janitor. And the way he said it and his tone, I said, nah, I'm all set. My future's all set as a janitor. People can make messes. I can pick it up and clean it up. I'm all good. And I left. It's the 6th time I've said no. Now it's almost midnight now. And I'm driving in a car and now it's starting to bug me. Starting to grind it. What do you mean by that? I guess he's sort of right. I could always go back being a janitor. By the time I got halfway home, I'm actually sort of miffed. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to find out exactly what he meant by that. I don't like, I'm going to find out what he meant kind of thing. Yeah. So I turn the car around. I figure, he's probably gone. It's almost midnight. He's, going to the airport tomorrow. He's still there. So I said, well, what do you have in mind? We start talking. For the next 4 months, I got in the car at 4:00 in the morning, between Friday night, Saturday morning, 4 in the morning, drove 301 miles, the exact mileage I still remember, from Chicago to Detroit, had a 6-hour meeting with him, got back in the car the same day and drove all the way back to Chicago 4 months in a row in the heart of winter. And I never missed a weekend. I didn't know he was testing me. I didn't know he was testing me for a question I would ask later on. And the first thing I want to share with your listeners is an important nugget of information. No matter where we're at in life, be careful, be observant, and be aware of those most seemingly insignificant times on the edge of a dime that are so small that are about ready to become the most significant trajectory changing events in our lives, as it was when I kept saying no and no and no to meet this guy. And I share with your listeners, be aware, because there's a trickery of success that it shows up on the thin edge of that dime. And when we're not ready for it, we're going to spend the dime, and as opposed to realizing what really happened. So here I am. And when I reached the age of 19, I finally asked Sam. Sam Robbins was my mentor's name. And I said, Sam, could you teach me everything? I mean, everything, everything, everything. Don't hold back. I want it all. He said, okay, I'll teach you all of it. But I want one thing from you. I want to let you know, Tony, whatever he said next, I'm totally in yes mode. You know? And he said, here's what I want from you. He said, when the time is right, and you will know that time, I want you to teach as many other people as possible everything that I teach you. So at 19 years old, Tony, I made a vow. I made an oath. I made a commitment that today is manifest as what we've known as Givers University. And I'm passing on all those things that my mentor, God bless him, I still believe he's looking over my shoulder, helping me every day, because I'm fulfilling my commitment and my vow that I made to him when I was 19 years old. And that was the beginning of how Givers University even came about.
But the chances of somebody meeting a June and a Sam, like you did, is, do you believe that we all meet these people, but we just don't always recognize it? You say perhaps sometimes we're not ready.
A great question. And I would say it's C, you know, all the above. But I can share with you the following. One of the things, again, that Sam taught me was, he said, you know, so many people are focused on the answers. Everyone wants to get the answer to it. What's the answer? What's the answer? What's the answer? He said, they're wrong. They're living life backwards. He said, the answers are omnipresent. They're always there, and they always will be there. He said, we need to learn how to focus on and ask the right questions. He said, it's the questions. He said, because when we ask the right questions, our lives become self-fulfilling prophecies, and the answers make their way to us when we ask those questions. Just like the person says, how come nothing ever goes right for me? They're right. Their life becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and nothing ever goes right for them. They're right. And you know, just as even as I said that, I had to rewire that in my head, because I don't believe that that's accurate. But we need to, and that's one of the things Sam drilled in me, ask the right questions. And that's the thing, Tony, that I did ignorantly at the ripe old age of 16, when I just threw it out there and I said, where's my Ray Kroc? Where would I meet my Ray Kroc? See, it was never a question of if I was going to meet him. I already knew I would. I just didn't know how or where. And that's what I was asking. And you know what happened? It wasn't 3 or 4 months later, and the answer was right there. So I think that, and I believe in my heart, those people that we need to meet, the June Martinos, who enlightened me with such a fantastic, wonderful day. And the years I had with my business mentor, those things were because I was not a sophomore, as we call it. I wasn't too smart for my own good. And I didn't have any problem with saying, teach me that. I'd love to learn that. You know, and I wanted to become a sponge for those, because I realized the only difference between June and me was that June was doing something I wasn't doing, and she knew something I didn't know. That's it. She wasn't a superhero. She wasn't an alien. She didn't have a superpower. And the same thing, my business mentor, he was a multimillionaire many times over, and happy. He truly was happy and then successful. The only difference between him and me. And I recognized that inadvertently, Tony, was my mind in its most simplistic way was just thinking, well, he just knows something I don't know, and he's just doing something I'm not doing. I need to find out what those two things are, and then I can apply them in my life. So with your business owners who are listening, if you don't have a mentor and you own a business, we call that naive. That's what we call that. You need to have a Tony Thomas in your life so that you're listening to how do you accumulate wealth, because as you know, my business mentor taught me when he taught me the law of compensation, that wealth is not money. No. And as a result of that, so you need to have a mentor in your life like Tony Thomas, and you need to listen to great podcasts which are mentoring, but also have good mentors. I mean, good people that have done it, not talkers, right? People that really have done it, that they can say, this is what I've done. This is why I know, and I can teach you, not because I want to make money because I haven't done it yet and I'm going to make money off of you, right? Big difference there. So he taught me, and he was my mentor. And that all came about because of inadvertently asking the right questions. And then my life, as everyone's is, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I ask your listeners, look in the mirror and ask yourself, where am I at? And what questions have I been asking that maybe I should modify those questions so that I start getting the right answers? Because when you ask the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. And I'm amazed, Tony, with the people I've met that go through life asking for what they do not want, and then they're surprised when they get it. It's what they asked for. Yeah. Why should you be surprised? So I just so love to be able to share those things, and you know, and how we relate to that, you know, and share those things through our courses at Givers University.
That's fantastic. You know, that's such a wise sort of way of looking at things. I think we've all, or many of us, have had those sort of thoughts where, you know, sometimes it's negative rather than the positive. But I truly believe in the same way as you do. If you think positively, and you are trying to attract good things, then you need to have those thoughts. You need to have those right thoughts rather than focusing on the negatives.
Oh, that's so important. In fact, you're right on with one of the most important things. Again, my mentor, he must have felt like he was one of those guys working the streets, one of those jackhammers on my head, because he was constantly, you know, just drilling these things into my head, trying to get through that layers of concrete of the, you know, son of a milkman, burnt out janitor who thinks his big fun is getting free songs on a jukebox at 2 a.m. cleaning bowling alleys, right? So, I mean, he had to get through that concrete. And one of the things he shared with me was, to your point, Tony, every adversity in life carries with it the seeds of equal or greater benefit. And he said, one of the things we need to do in life, and he was instructing me, he said, get rid of the word failure. Get it out of your vernacular. Don't say it. It's too eternal. He said, supplant that word with the words temporary defeat. He said, because now you're reframing it in your mind. It's the same thing, but you're reframing it and giving it a different label in your own mind on purpose. And he said, a temporary defeat is like when you get a first down, when you get tackled and you get a first down, when you stand up, you realize you got the first down. He said, you're still in the game. When you say failure, you just threw yourself out of the game. He said, don't throw yourself out of the game. Label things as temporary defeats. Yeah. Every adversity.
It's a lesson. It's a lesson to learn from, and make sure that you don't repeat that same mistake. And you can learn from every single adversity, as you say, every single one of them.
And we have to move aside those leaves. See, when the adversity hits, and when, you know, because not some adversity, yes, adversity carries with the seed of equal or greater benefits. What we have to do as leaders is move aside those leaves and find those seeds. And when we do, we will realize that's exactly what we needed to get to the next step. Without those seeds, hence without the adversity, we wouldn't have gone the next step up. So I'm going to say something now, Tony. It's going to bake the noodles of your listeners. When I say this, they will say this guy EA is off his rocker. But when they stop and pause and dwell on it, they will see the truth of it. When we really, really understand temporary defeat, not failure, but temporary defeat, when we've really supplanted it in our life, and wisdom in our life begins to supplant ignorance, simply not knowing, what we begin to realize was as follows. We will begin to welcome and embrace temporary defeat when it shows up on our doorstep. And it won't be something that we're fearful from. And fear will no longer be holding us captive, because now we're welcoming temporary defeat, because we know we're trained, we can move aside those leaves, we'll find those seeds that never would have been there without the adversity. And because of that, we will go up the next steps we wanted to go up all along, and it never would have happened without that adversity in our lives. So when we are able to embrace and welcome temporary defeat, now we're really learning what prosperity and exceptionalism is all about.
different mindset altogether.
Yes.
Total change of mindset.
Yeah.
I think that, that's something that we all need to perhaps master much better than what we've done in the past, and change our mindsets so that, as you say, these adversities just present opportunities, seeds, opens or clears the way for ladders, the next steps that we need to get onto. So it's just the way that you look at things.
Exactly right. And all of these things, by the way, along with, I didn't make up any of this. I mean, this was taught to me not only, but from my business mentor, but I was very blessed to have a radio talk show. And in 2 years, I interviewed 1,000 millionaires.
Yeah, I read that too.
And that was, and the best part, Tony, was the questions I got to ask them off the air, all of which I had prepared in advance with every one of them. There were things I wanted to know and things I wanted to learn. And here's something I can share with your listeners, because if they're a business owner, they're having this happen, or they haven't, they will. And every one of those 1,000 people, Tony, every one of them had and were able to share with me a story where everything in their life, and I mean everything, told them stop. Don't go any further. Throw in the towel. Their family, their associates, their acquaintances, their social circle, their business associates, their finances, everything said, stop, throw in the towel. And you know what's interesting is that with these 1,000 people, a number of them who they didn't even know each other, unrelated to each other, unrelated industries. They even, when they said what happened next, many of them even used the same words. And the words were almost humorous in an interesting way. They all said, do you know, when I reached that point, I took the next step out of curiosity just to see if there was anything else I had missed in going wrong. They said, what else could possibly go wrong? Was there anything I missed? And they just said, it was out of curiosity, maybe morbid curiosity. Is there anything else that could possibly? And they said, and when I did that next step, it was like temporary defeat exited my life. Yeah. And then, interestingly enough, almost without effort, things began to click and work out correctly on their own for my advantage. And it says, like, temporary defeat went to someone else's life, so I'm gonna screw them up because this guy doesn't know when to give up, right? And so as a result of that, I share with your listeners, be willing to go the next step. Be willing to do the June Martino and not get paid, because you will find out if you simply have enough leadership to move aside those leads. Ask the right questions, not the ones that are going to self-sabotage you, but the right questions. You'll get the right answers, and you'll see yourself moving up those stairs, and you'll be so thankful for every one of those adversities. As I view them, every one of them is a blessing in my life that helped me.
And is that right for somebody in their teens, 20, 30, 40, 50s? Can that be applied, that same principle? Doesn't matter what stage of life that you're at?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter what stage, who we're with, whether it works the same for social, family, business, etc. And I can share with you, if I may, because this sort of folds into a little bit about what we teach at Givers University and how we impact people's lives from all of this 40 years of information that's been accumulated. Simply put, we truthfully, and I do right now 1 to 3 podcasts a day, I can share with you, no entity is teaching what we're teaching right now. And I can demonstrate it by virtue of a couple of quick thoughts and questions to your listeners. First one, think about the fires that you stamp out each day.
Yep.
Think about the times when your stress level goes straight through the roof. Think about the times where you've had conversations. At the end of the conversation, you don't even remember what you talked about, but you do know one thing: you have no more energy left.
Yeah.
All those things have one thing in common. There's a name attached to them. And what we teach people is discernment, and it's not being taught anywhere else. And here's how we explain that, Tony, for your listeners' sake. First of all, I want to say, I emphatically say, we love everybody. I repeat, we love everybody. And what we teach is how to discern and separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love.
Right. Okay.
And from what we do is we teach people to look for the actual deeds, broad, innocuous swaths of information where you say, wow, that sounded really good. Oh, what do I do with that? Right? We've used a much more granular, detailed approach by demonstration, I would say. If right now, Tony, looking at you, if you had, and I could tell you had, itchy eyes and maybe a runny nose, from those symptoms, from my observing those symptoms, I could assume and assess you might have a cold.
Yeah.
I'm not able to see the cold, but the symptoms are telling me they're there. Right?
Yeah.
The plant symptoms with deeds. And what we actually do is we genuinely teach checklists of actual deeds that we should watch for people doing. And when we see them doing these things, then we begin to discern, should I bring them closer into my life?
Yeah.
Because if they're a giver, they're going to bring with them the 3 W's of wisdom, wealth, and wellness. By contrast, if I see them doing other certain deeds, maybe I should discern and begin to respectfully distance myself from them, not nasty or rude or insensitive, respectfully distance myself from them, because when I bring them into my life, they're going to bring the 3 D's of a taker, which is defeatism, disruption, and destruction. And I'm going to be collateral damage, and I'm going to be stomping out fires. Hence, my productivity will go through the floor. My stress level will go up. So I'll be not producing right. And my energy will be emptied.
Yes.
And instead of having energy gainer. So we teach people, even by virtue of checklists that we want to give your listeners free, absolutely free. Download them, put them in your pocket, use them, because watch how they will change the way you observe and think about as you learn this new skill of discernment in relationships. So really, Tony, you're a self-improvement guy. I'm a self-improvement guy. I love it. But no one's teaching us, how about the other guy? What if he's not doing it right? What should I do about that? Because he's going to influence my life. And these people will influence our life in dramatic ways that we're not even paying attention to. And we teach people, pay attention, observe, and discern. So that's what we teach at Givers University, how to discern in relationships.
This university has been running for what, 30 plus years?
Actually, it started, well, I mean, it goes all the way back to when I was 19 years old when it started, but the embryonic thought, if you will, and my commitment and my vow. And then over time, it began to take shape. In 1991, it became, more of a real kind of actual concept of this is how it's going to be taught, and moving forward. And it has evolved actually since then. And ever since then, we've actually been refining, because remember, my business mentor said something really critical. He said, when the time is right, and you will know that time. I can share with you now, more than ever before in history, discernment is not being taught. This is the time. This is the time he spoke of. Hence, in the next little while, Givers University is going to become very visible as we teach people. And when we say giver, by the way, we're not labeling people. We're labeling deeds. It's giver deeds. When we say taker, when we say taker, we're not labeling a person. You're a taker. We're labeling the deeds of a taker. And then we can even show them, if they're being too takerish, how they can be more giverish. So I want to share something with you as 2 final thoughts, if I may. One is, you may have some listeners right now who are saying, wow, this is really great stuff. You know what? I got a family member right now that's being a little takerish. Someone needs to talk to them. And I need to have this conversation, but I love them. I care for them. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want them to feel bad, but this needs to be brought up and it needs to be talked about. What should we do? What should I do about that? Do you know, Tony, one of the best things that I hardly recommend they could do is share a podcast called Tony Talks Wealth. And here's why. It's a third party. It's a great way to open up the conversation by simply saying, you know what? I heard this really thought-provoking podcast. They were talking about things I hadn't really thought about before. It was really interesting. Do me a favor, listen to it. Give me your thoughts on it. I'd love to hear your feedback on what you never know. Their mind may open. And because you were a giver and you shared Tony Talks Wealth podcast with them, as a direct result of that, their mind may open up and you may be stomping out one less fire. So it's a very, very, very important thing for someone as they go on their road to wealth to be able to understand the importance of being a giver and doing that.
Fantastic. How many members have gone through this series?
I could say if we went back into, I mean, geez, we're going back, I could go back a couple decades, and people that were getting our newsletter was already into the multi-tens of thousands.
Really?
Yeah. And we basically, what we do is we provide for your listeners, and it's transitioned over the years for sure, as anything does. And we wanted it to, that's a part of what we did on purpose. So we have free checklists we want to give, Tony, to your listeners. And all they simply do is they have two options. They can go to giversuniversity.com. And by the way, the sign up for the newsletter will be reappearing in the next week or two, because we have a major rehaul going on our website.
Okay,
it's going to look fantastic. But so they should think about doing this, and when they get the chance, do it, or take the quiz I'm going to mention. But they can go to do a quiz that's called Givers University, Givers plural, university.info.
Yep.
There's a 7-question quiz there. They should do it. It's called What is Your Givers Takers Awareness IQ? 7 questions. It's a great quiz. And then from that, they will automatically get subscribed, and they'll get the downloads, free downloads. There's one downloads I love. It's called the 25 Do's That Givers Do. It's literally on 2 pages, a checklist that people will be able to use in discernment. When our website is up right now, but the newsletter part is going to be reappearing. But they should go to giversuniversity.com and then sign up for the newsletter. We don't spam. They're going to get an email that says, do you want communication from them? Say yes. And then the first download will appear immediately in a matter of minutes. We don't spam. We don't send out 6 emails. We send out 1 a week. It's usually on Thursday. And that email is devoted to giving them genuine, helpful nuggets and tips for that week that will help them discern and become more of a giver and contrast takers in their life. So we really are nurturers, and we love to be able to provide that. So we love to have all of your listeners get those free downloads and benefit.
I will put all these links in the show notes, so people will be able to pick that up, even if they obviously miss it in the podcast itself. But I'm just picking up on a point. Again, this might be wrong in terms of my interpretation, but my perception is that a giver is far happier, is a far happier and fulfilled person than the taker.
The contrast is so dramatic, it cannot even be quantified.
Yeah.
A giver that really has been trained as a giver and is wired that way, and it's also a skill like any other skill, they truly will have exceptional happiness, freedom, and greatness in their life. And it'll be predictive, and it'll be massive, because givers earn 3 times more, because givers discern 3 times more.
I think that is a fantastic note to sort of come towards the end of this podcast, because if anybody needed any form of motivation or insight into why you should change your mindset and become a giver, then that is as good as any you're going to get.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate being able to share thoughts with you. And do you have any final questions for you?
Yes, I've got one, which I ask all of my guests, and it would be remiss of me not to ask you the same, EA. So, and that question is, what does wealth mean to you?
Excellent. And I would share with you, if I can do a 2-part answer. One, I'm going to have to borrow from someone else. I was very blessed, again, at an early age, to fly around with a gentleman, and his name is W. Clement Stone. He was genuinely a billionaire, owned Combined Insurance. And we did some Easter seal work together. It was decades and decades ago. So one time I was with him, and I thought, man, this guy's a billionaire. And that's with a B back then, right?
Yeah.
So I asked him, I said, Clement, that's how usually I clam or Clement. I said, could you tell me what money is? If he's a billionaire, there's a guy I want to ask what money is, right? Do you know, he didn't even hesitate. He turned to me, because we were in an airplane, actually. And he turned to me and looked at me and said, money is power to do good. And I'll never forget the way he said it. He paused for half a second to see if I really got it. He said, money is power. And then he finished up with, to do good.
Good. Yeah.
And wealth, we actually teach a whole course called the Law of Compensation.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible it's like a 45-minute audio just on compensation and how people don't make a lot of money because they don't understand how compensation works. And compensation is not necessarily money. Wealth includes so many more things. It includes real wealth, exceptional happiness is wealth, exceptional freedom, exceptional greatness, and not the condescending greatness, but the kind of greatness where we get under people and push them up. So I share that with you, not only the definition of money from a billionaire who told me, his lips to my ears, but also that wealth is not money. It's so much more.
Yeah.
And on that note, if I could share with you the 3 things that are part of that wealth, by the way, that my business mentor shared with me. And he said, say these 3 things to yourself every single day. He said, say it over and over again each day. Don't miss a day. Don't forget any of the 3. I share them with your listeners as a gift that I pray they begin saying these same 3 things to themselves. And here they are. I will never give up. I will keep rising up, and I will always overcome.
Wow. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you today. I found our conversation absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure my listeners are going to feel the same way as well. So I'd like to thank you very, very much and wish you all the very best in everything you do, and keep on giving through your university.
Thank you so much, Tony. And as we like to say, and as I like to say, don't just have your best day, have your best day ever.
Thank you.